Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Rae Show. It's marble day out in the torch shop, and I'm going to still be working with some dichroic glass today. So I'm going to try and do a little piece that is going to be incorporated crosswise. I've done this a number of times, but I kind of like this technique. Let's get fired up. I'm going to start out making a little dichroic sandwich, twisting it up. So I'm starting out with whatever the heck this is, 12, 13 millimeter rod. And this morning is a cool morning, but it's supposed to get up in the 90s again today. We're in red flag fire conditions here. Got a fire up, it's way up in the mountains east of us. And we had one of our helicopters fighting the fire, just flew overhead. We're just right on the flight line between the airport down in Hamilton and the fire's up above us. So they come right over our heads. It was kind of cool. Been 2 different helicopters flying up there. They've got a pretty good handle on it, but I know they're worried about today, tomorrow, next day. Got some high temperatures. So I'm going to try and start out, do a little gather, and then do kind of a little lollipop sort of thing. And add the dichroic glass. I've got 2 little. I put this view on here so you can see I've got 2 different pieces of dichroic here that are hopefully going to contrast a little bit with one another. But because of all the fires all across the west, it's a little smoky here. So if my voice is a little froggy and I'm sneezing and coughing, that's why. So I try to do a couple squares that are fairly large, really, compared to how big this marble is. Trying to scale things going into a construction is always a little tricky. And I did have a public service announcement. I had a piece of glass in my finger yesterday. You need these. You need these magnifying visors. You need some good little tweezers. Every shop should have these for various reasons. Because I use them in the glasswork, but I used them yesterday to pull a sliver out of my thumb. And when you look at it under magnification, when you pull something like that out of your skin, it's like, ooh, yuck, that was in there pretty deep. So my thumb's a little tender, but I think we're good. With really good tweezers, anytime you've got a sliver, always kind of what you're looking for. Alright, kind of a thick, chunky lollipop here. It may actually be kind of big for the chunks of dichroic I have, but that's what we got. Trying to flame polish these faces. So I think one thing I was doing that maybe wasn't quite right in laying down the dichroic was heating the base clear glass too hot. I thought it would be good to have the base really hot and have that dichroic sit down, but I think I actually kind of overdid it. It was too hot. Okay, and then we got to figure out, get the flame nice and soft. Make sure our dichroic side is facing away from the flame. I'll try and do this a little differently. So I'm going to lay that down and get this broken off. That was a little messy right there. Usually I have my big Marver paddle, but I like this little guy. I'll squeeze that in. So this left kind of a messy tail here. I'm not sure cleaning it up is going to help. Alright, we'll try that. And then rinse and repeat. Do that again. Okay, I do want the base glass warm for sure, but probably not glowing hot. That's one reason I kind of paid attention to flame polishing out that base there, so it is a nice surface to lay this down. Yeah, well, you just have to work with messing around with that attachment point. Okay, I want to make sure this is all squished down. Okay. All right, what else we need to do here? We need to run around the edges. Try and make sure this is sealed on the edge. Now at this point, I debated two different ideas. One is just twist it up from here. Means the dichroic has minimal coverage. Just the sheet clear that it comes when you buy it. Or whether I should build up more clear on top of it to try and protect it more. So my inclination is to add clear to protect it, but then we have the issue of including some bubbles into the situation. So I do want to add some more clear. Okay, well, for better or worse, we'll go with that. Now, we need to heat this whole thing up and twist it. So I'm going to try and build up our heat base slowly. I used to do a lot of dichroic work with soft glass, basically, bullseye compatible. So it was COE 90, I believe. And the one thing I do remember with that, I got pretty good at it, but it was very slow. I found it kind of tedious and time consuming. But there was a brief time when that was popular stuff and I could sell individual beads that I made. I remember they went for like $28 a bead, which at the time seemed like pretty good money for what I was putting into it. But eventually, I kind of fell out of favor doing that work because I just found it so tedious. There's a lot of things I see other glass workers doing that they do an incredible job, and I know pretty much, I have a good sense of how much time and effort they put into it, and I just think, it's not for me. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of skills I don't have and probably never will that require a degree of fine motor, eye-hand coordination, whatever, different skills that at my age is just not very practical. So we're getting this thing glowing pretty good. We'll stick a handle on here and see if we can detect when it wants to start moving. I guess I can just leave it on this big rod. I think what I'll try and do is, I'm not going to cut it off, but kind of narrow this down so the attachment point behaves a bit more like a smaller connection. Okay, I'm like holding this rod in my right hand. I'm not even letting it spin. I'm just letting it twist the glass right at the connection point. Trying to twist this up without getting too crazy hot. So I wasn't sure how this step was going to go. It's kind of what I suspected. It's pretty reluctant to spin up the way I want it to, but it's getting there. So at this point, the Dichroic is pretty well buried in there, hopefully. I still want to respect the heat. I think one Dichroic seems to be behaving better than the other. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so one thing I want to do, now I will cut this loose. I'm going to try and remove some glass off the edges. With all the reflections and stuff inside there, it's actually kind of hard to see how close I am to the Dichroic itself. And now I see the edge. Okay, now we got to swap sides and do that again. So again, trying to clean up the end, get rid of some excess clear. All right, now we got to go 90 degrees. cut loose the sand. Wow, it looks really cool looking straight down into there. I'm going to do it crosswise. I'm going to stick with my plan. I was going to change my plan, but stick with it. It's going into the little hot box. We're going to switch gears and go with our larger clear rod. Get this end going. I want that. All right, now it's just clear glass. We can get harsh with it. Well, I hope everyone is hanging in there, doing okay out there. In some crazy times, I've been pretty disturbed by these fires over in Spokane. I feel fairly confident in our fire safety where we live at home, but we definitely get fires around us. But I survived the 2000 fire season here in the Bitter. It was the worst in the nation. Not an awful lot of homes lost, but a lot of fire. The smoke was unbelievable. And I was still trying to get work done here in the shop, so I had a swamp cooler propped up in front of my window with the air coming in, and duct taped a furnace filter to the window so the air that came through that water filter basically with the swamp cooler. And it was hot, blazing hot. So it was not a fun time in the torch shop then. But you do what you got to do to get some work done. So building up a gather here to attach this other piece I made with the dichroic. So I want it to be a pretty good size, I guess. Just got my kitty mug out today. Kind of mixing it up a little bit. This shirt I'm wearing with the physics with astronomy was the degree my daughter got at the University of Montana. And she's headed back to school here in a couple weeks. Go for another degree. Okay, I think we got kind of a base here. Wait a moment for this to settle down. I can turn off my little hot box over here. So we've got to heat our two parts up to bring them together. I'm going to kind of favor the heat on the clear and try and minimize the heat on the dichroic, but the next steps are going to take a lot of heat one way or the other, so let's see where we can go with this. Okay. So when we touch down, we don't want to squish. We want to maintain a little valley there, much as we can. And we can start pushing a bit. I can remove my attachment. And now comes kind of a relatively gentle phase to convert this to a cone. So with fumed, so I really like doing this technique with the fumed pieces, because I can just cook the heck out of it and get it to melt together. A little paddle is not digging all this heat. All right. Next step. It's going to be some frit. Imagine that. Me using frit. So this is turbo Cobalt, which tends to be a little fizzy when it heats in. I kind of like that effect. this frit is kind of really fine granules. So once you get some of the surface spots are overheating, basically, you can get more frit to stick to those spots. And sort of add to that open, crazy structure. Alright, now get this frit out of the way. Still need to melt this in a little better. Okay, we're getting pretty well smoothed in. Next up is going to be some gold fume. Gold kind of moved on me there. It's okay. So this will make a background that's got all these dark turbo cobalt's almost black. And then behind it will be this gold. So we're going to seal that in with some dark cobalt. Okay. Come around the perimeter and define our edge. And laying this down pretty thick, but giving a gap. while I've got it here, I'm going to actually pull out some stringer kind of on the fly here. I actually joined together two pieces. I don't think this is the same. I think one's dark cobalt and the other's cobalt 4 or something like that. Pretty similar. Okay, that's a pretty cruddy looking stick there, but it's going to do what I want. Alright, cook time. Set your timer, put it in the oven and cook it for a while. So this is intended to give a pattern in the background more than just a flat, plain surface, give a little texture to it. Alright, let that cool down for a moment. Okay, come back in here, try and kind of fill in these areas between the lines that didn't get covered. All right, squeeze this in. Now there's little zones that may or may not be fully covered. Sometimes I go back and fiddle with all those, but for this marble I don't think I'm too concerned about that stuff. So, move on to the next step. I'll do a little silver fume on there. There's some on here. Okay, now we are up to the backfill. And I'm getting nice and warm. It seemed so cool just a few minutes ago. It's warming up. Last week I didn't quite have the right touch going on with this step, and I left some bubbles. And some people get really upset about bubbles. I just kind of look at it, it is what it is. Sometimes it's annoying, sometimes it's just a feature. Maybe it affects the ultimate value to a collector or an owner of the piece, but I had somebody comment a while back that's like saw bubbles in my work and said it was very unprofessional. Okay, well, you're not going to offend me. I've been doing this a long time and it is what it is. So put it this way. I've sold basically every piece of glass I've ever made, every bead, every pendant, unless it actually cracked or broke or was unsellable in some fashion. It's just a matter of price. There's definitely other artists out there that are doing phenomenal work I can't believe. I would never consider even attempting such a thing. And again, I know the effort that goes into it, and it's like, I hope they're getting a buttload for their work, because they are putting a ton of work into it. Taking high risks. So I always sort of look at it as like, it's up to the buyer. They want to buy it at that price. They want to offer me something lower. They want to point out flaws and say I shouldn't sell it. Whatever. Don't really care. As far as hurting my feelings or something. Made a lot of glass. I made a lot of people happy. A lot of smiles. And sometimes those oddball pieces just are a freebie to a kid. And he's going to cherish it. Not going to worry about some little boo-boo. That said, with our fair coming up, I've been trying some other techniques to make some different sort of pendants, and yesterday I had limited success. So there are those test pieces that are pretty funky. You see, they may be worthy of putting in a sale bin. Back in the days of making beads, not often, but sometimes I've had a bowl of labeled ugly beads. And people go, oh, what's ugly? They're not ugly. It's like, yeah, well, look at this and that. They got their flaws. Oh, well, that's okay. So still sell them for 50 cents or something. Some people feel sorry for the ugly glass. Then I knew I met a very nice, well-respected bead artist back in the day, and she was in a mode of making some pretty funky beads that were kind of intended to be, I guess, reproductions of ancient beads. So she was trying to give them a distressed look. So, you know, art is art. I looked at that work and I thought, man, I don't know who wants to buy that. It looked, frankly, a little too funky to me. I didn't quite see the... Just at that time, I was not appreciative of what she was doing. But I gave her kudos for stepping out of the box and trying something different. She was definitely trying to get a reaction from people, get interest. Okay, well, I may have about enough clear glass on the back here. We'll see. I guess maybe we need a little bit more. Have a little valley here. This, what I'm doing right now, is spinning the rod as I'm applying it. Helps kind of evenly heat the glass and hopefully avoid boiling. Make sure it's nice and fluid. So lay it down. Anytime glass is sticking up, that tends to be a place where it's going to overheat and boil. Stuff. Alright, smooth it out just a little bit. And we're going to lay down some color lines. Found some pieces of glass on my bench. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'm going to say this is Butterscotch. Got a lot of little pieces tagged together. So on an application like this, the stringer can be kind of funky. It can vary quite a bit because it's going to get raked out. It's a good place to use up some kind of oddball stringers. And potentially even some oddball colors if you're not sure what they are. Alright, then we've got some really tealy, I believe. I think I pulled together, of course it doesn't look like what was in my mind's eye, but as far as the technique and the process, um, I had this idea a week ago or something. Sometimes I talk about how I just got the idea yesterday. This has been kind of floating around my mind for a while. And I didn't go to the full twisted up galaxy kind of mix, but I think it's accomplishing what I wanted, maybe even better than what I thought it would. Okay, this is root beer. Root beer is kind of an oddball color. It can wind up being rusty red. Sometimes it's got some kind of greenish tones to it. The stripe, slightly different colors in the same piece. Okay, warming up. I have an air conditioner in the window in the shop, but I don't run it when I'm doing these videos. I'm not sure impact the audio all that much, but it's just one more noisemaker that I think makes it more difficult to work while recording. So I really appreciate anyone who's watching these videos, if you're hanging in there, checking this out. I know from my experience, I look at other people's videos and I think, oh, I can do that. And I sit down on the torch and I try and do that. Turns out it's not as easy as it looked in the video, that's for sure. So there's always that. And sometimes you just have to give yourself some grace and you're like, well, this may take a little bit to figure this out. Because you got to realize, watching this video from someone who's made God knows how many marbles, you watch other people's videos and you got to figure that's not the first time they did that. Probably. I do hear a lot of, particularly beginners, people learning or expanding their techniques, and like, I'm just really struggling with this. It's like, well, after you make a couple hundred of them, it'll probably get better. So sometimes it takes a lot of repetition, get that kind of muscle memory built in, and even then, it requires a focus that is not really a common level of focus that we have in our lives. So people find their own methods and studio setup and so on to create the atmosphere that helps them do their work. This for me has been kind of a unique experience to be doing this with essentially an audience. When I worked in aerospace, I did a lot of manufacturing work with a lot of scrutiny of inspectors, so it's not strange to me to have people watching me work. I don't find that very disturbing, but we do have our county fair coming up, and I'll be mostly on the torch, 9 9 in the morning to 9 at night kind of deal for 4 days straight. That's intense. And in that environment, the stressor is you got people stopping by randomly throughout the day, wanting to instantly see something magical. They generally don't have a lot of patience to stand around waiting more than 2 minutes. And during that brief time, they may or may not see anything of interest. It's I'd swear it's kind of different this would be like our 13th year, I think we've been doing this, and young children used to be pretty enthralled with the glasswork and would hang out watching a lot and keep coming back and watching more and bringing their friends over and say, oh, look, I know what he's doing. And it's kind of changed. People's attention spans, young and old, is very small these days. And it can depend on the weather. Sometimes it's just really hot and people just, when it gets to a certain level of heat, people kind of fade out. They're not apt to hang around as much. And this year, it might be smoky. You never know. It's still a couple weeks out. The temperatures look like they might be a lot cooler. That means it's actually in the mornings and particularly the evenings, it's going to be cold for us. That can be kind of a factor. But if it's on the cold side, it's less likely to have crazy thunderstorms and high winds, I guess. Okay, backside is looking pretty chill. Now we can punty up. This stuff is done with. Okay, grab a punty rod. I've been debating if it's time to get a new set of these flip-up shades that I use. These are just a blue reflective clip-on. I find they make a great darkening lens. So my regular didiniums are a glass. They're the enhanced glass that Philips used to sell a lot of. I don't know what they're selling these days. A lot of this stuff has gone way up in price, and people have gone a lot more to plastic lenses that I don't think are highly recommended. I think the basic original didinium glass filter is a good starting point. And then inside, I've got a magnifier, like a cheap pair of magnifying glasses, reader glasses, and I've cut off the pieces so it's just kind of tied to the inside. I tried they're made so these ones that kind of stick on, you get them wet and they stick on the inside of your sunglasses or whatever for reading. And they work good, but they didn't hold up. I think with the heat and stuff, that material got kind of hardened over time. So just some basic cheap reader glasses. And those are generally made out of polycarbonate, which is actually a pretty good filter for ultraviolet. So when I have the clip-ons down, that's 3 layers of filtration basically protecting my eyes. I don't do really big stuff nor have a torch that really rages. So, you know, what I have works for me. It seems my eyes are doing well, considering my age. It's pretty daunting when the eye doctor says, "Oh yeah, well most people when they get in their 70s are going to need cataract surgery," and it's like, oh great. The joys of getting older. For me, basically, my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, near and far. So, is what it is. You work with what you got. Do what we can. And try and put some good energy into it. Okay, trying to build up a clear lens that's larger than the colored side because I'm going to tear some of this glass off. I need kind of an excess amount of glass to work with. These pinch rollers are kind of nice to have. You don't have to. A lot of time before I had that, I would do it on the edge of the arbor plate. It works pretty well. So tearing along this edge, cleaning and defining that line of color, a little bit of frit and stuff that spills over the edge, and get rid of some of that. But mostly we're kind of digging out a layer of glass that's kind of disturbed from all the condensing. So first week of September is our week at the Valley County Fair. And that kind of consumes our week, so there won't be a video that week. At least not a marble video. I may put up a recorded bit of glass blowing. Usually try and do a few little videos of what's going on at the fair. Alright, once we've gone all the way around, oops, be careful not to mess that up. You don't want little stringers of glass, especially colored glass, folding over and attaching to your surface. That can leave a mark. I'm just taking some broader strokes and just skim off the surface. Get down to some nice clean optical glass. So generally with tweezers, you want to keep them out of the fire. So I drop this out of the flame, grab a hold of some glass, get back to the flame. And then anything that you can see that lights up, definitely want to get rid of that. Okay, let's see where we're at. Totsy. These Kevlar sleeves are godsend. Definitely want some Kevlar sleeves. I didn't. For a lot of years I worked without them. I generally have some kind of long sleeve shirt on or whatever, which is fine. Just make sure it's cotton. Whatever you wear around the court should be cotton. You don't want any synthetic materials that will get hot and melt and stick to your skin. It's an unpleasant scenario. Okay, into the elm arbor to give a little. I can't see that. Anyway, kind of get that edge barreled out. It's easier to go from a barrel to a sphere. Okay, we'll go into the oversized mold. And then come into our 2-inch mold. And that gives pretty much our rough lens side. switch punties. I don't do any crazy knocking off of the puntee. It's not worth it. You don't want the marble rolling around your table and going onto the floor and rolling under your bench and running into something that melts or is flammable. Been there, done that. The oxygen and propane lines can take some abuse, but you don't really want them on the floor where a marble could run into them and start a fire. So the color side is always a little more difficult to get it to shape up. Try and use some rotation, kind of pull it in. And get it good and hot. One of the general ideas I've done many times is I lay it kind of flat in the mold and let that end kind of stick out. See, it's like got a little bump out. That's kind of trying to preserve the Vortex focal in the distance. The key then is to let this melt together without too much aggressive marbling. Country rods are a little short. And then it can go into, well, we'll start out with the oversized mold. A little curvature going. Now it's coming together. Well, the two Dichroics, one is definitely better than the other. I wish I could identify it so I could label. So I just have some random pieces. I don't know what they are. I'm not sure I can really identify which ones I used. But one of them was definitely more friendly to the heat than the other. Okay, keep repeating some heat cycles and marble mold marbling. Try and get a lot of heat base. Start watching the reflections. Now we're pretty much there, so we can use some fast rotation and sit in the graphite mold for a little bit and lose some heat. So the core no longer needs to be hot. Everything we're going to do at this point is just going to be on the surface. Hopefully this turns out a little different than what you typically see in dichroic marbles. I'm trying to avoid just repeating some of the basic stuff that people do all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Or maybe I will just try to make something like everybody else does, and I won't be able to do a good job with it, probably. Alright. So I think we're pretty much at the point where you just hit it with some heat to flame polish. Alright, now we need to get out of the heat and let this cool down. So while you're cooling down, you always want to be rotating. In this scenario, just keep it pretty level. We're not trying to push it in or out. Very nice. Okay, another punty swap. So this is the last punty, hopefully. So not a nice roundy bullet end. Anytime you're transferring punties, you get to a point where you're focused on your new punty and its orientation to your piece. And the old punty, you just let it kind of free ride. Don't try and keep it on. Don't try and make it axial on center. Let your new one take control, and the old one let go of control. All right. Dig out that punty. We don't want any remnants of that connection, because that'll leave a mark. Okay, clear lens side works much faster. We basically all already have the shape we want. We're going to give it a good heat. Come out of the fire. Don't wait too long. We're going to put it in the back side that's solid and ease it into the front that's not so solid. And then kind of change our direction up and down. When you're putting a marble that's oversized of the marble mold, you get a nice spinning action. So that gave us a good sense of our overall shape. And when you come in, try and keep rotations going the same direction to avoid wrinkles from back and forth. Once it's firmed up, you can go back and forth. But ooh, that left kind of a blip off the end. Yeah, you got a little boo-boo. Not a boo-boo, but a speck of something there. Okay, minor setback. Now we're focusing our heat just on the very face. wait a little bit and try and engage that face onto the edge of the marble mold. And you get to a certain point, you're just going to keep making little wrinkles. So then you're going to just flame polish, which means in this case, really getting that front face seriously hot. Keep rotating. Watch our reflections. Do a cycle or two just flame polishing, which means just kind of slow rotations, sit it in the fire until it's good and hot, and then get out of there. And I think we're good to go. Don't stop rotating, keep rotating. Right now we're waiting a minute to get it into the marble mold. I don't want to make any dings in it. It's funny how that dichroic centerpiece, it's kind of not really on center. It's kind of off center a little bit. Well, not a little bit, quite a bit. Interesting. Oh well, here it is. Okay, some wet tweezers. Blow off any little chips that might be sitting around. You do that. Okay, then I just look at the reflection of that point, and it's looking pretty good, pretty smooth. All right. Well, once again, your friendly reminder for safety in the torch shop: have your magnifiers and have some good tweezers that have a nice tip. Because I use this for gold and silver pieces, but if you get something in your fingers, that's what you need. Anyway, throw this in the kiln. We're done for today, as far as this video goes. So thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out, watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of those around you. Be kind. And we will see you on another adventure another day. Check out the finished marble in the video right now. And I'm going to take a break. See you later.